Alrighty, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you to all you who are joining us today. I see some folks are still trickling in. Since this is going to be recorded, it is being recorded now. We are going to start right now at the top of the hour. My name is Joe Amditis. I'm Assistant Director of Products and Events here at the Center for Cooperative Media. Really excited for today. We've been planning this for a while now. We have a fantastic instructor to lead this workshop on Facebook in 2023 for local news publishers. What's going on? What's happening over there? What are we doing about it? What's pissing us off? And how do we deal with it? How do we use this tool, this platform to better serve our communities and also create sustainable businesses along the way? And so I'm really excited to be joined today by our esteemed guest and leader, Emilie Lutostanski. Emilie, welcome. Thank you so much. Before we get to Emilie and her presentation, a quick note about how this is going to run. This is going to be an hour long. We will have time for questions at the end. So keep those questions, put them in the chat if you want throughout the event. But if you want to ask one out loud, there will be an opportunity for that. And you can use the raise hand feature at the bottom of the Zoom window to indicate that you have a question, and I will call on you, bring you up on stage. It would be great if you could turn your video on if you want to ask a question out loud, because I can't spotlight people without video on, and we want to see your beautiful face. So obviously not the whole time. We respect your privacy, but throughout the time, we also have our chat window there, as you're probably very familiar with by now. I'll be monitoring the chat. Emilie will be monitoring the chat throughout this to make sure we catch all your questions, comments, and concerns. I'll send out an email at the end of this with a recap, with including the recording, an audio transcript of the event, of the workshop, any resources, the slides. You'll get the whole kit from me. So do not fear if you have to step away for a moment. That's fine. Treat yourself, take care of yourself, get water, do a bio break when you need. This is just a webinar, so no big deal. With that, I will go ahead and I will turn it over to our fearless leader here. Emilie, you want to take it away?
Yeah, thank you so much, Joe. I'm really excited to be here today. Thanks everyone for joining. I appreciate your time, hoping to get through a lot of good information in about an hour. And so I'm just going to go ahead and dive right in. We're talking today about local news organizations and how they can optimize how they use Facebook. I want to say thank you to Joe. Thank you to Stephanie over at the Center for Cooperative Media for hosting me today and providing this opportunity for everyone here. I do want to start too with a bit of an introduction about myself. My name is Emilie Lutostanski, and I'm I'm the previous director of the Local News Resource Center over at Local Media Association. That's how I got acquainted with the folks at the Center for Cooperative Media. I've spent the last 15 years specializing in local news. I started as a reporter, but for the past 4 or 5 years, I've been directly coaching local news organizations on how to use social media. What are the best practices? What are other local newsrooms doing? And I'm continuing that work now as an independent consultant and coach. So feel free to reach out to me here on LinkedIn, on Twitter. You can use my email here as well. I'm happy to, spend 15, 20 minutes with you chatting about, your social strategy and how you might amplify and accelerate your growth. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. First, I want to dive into the state of Facebook. So we'll kind of level set, talk about the trends, the algorithm. That's a big word that I heard used in the survey that we asked before this workshop today, and really just what are the demographics, what's happening. Then I want to walk you through probably the biggest chunk of our workshop today, which is what's actually working for local news publishers. I have a lot of examples thrown in there, and we'll kind of break it down, content, best practices, video, kind of a bunch of different topics under what's working. And then I'll touch on briefly measuring success. I know we're all at different starting points in our Facebook readership and Facebook audience growth. And so we'll go through briefly, what qualifies as quality engagement, and then what metrics are most valuable to local news organizations. And yeah, as Joe said, as we go through this, feel free to drop questions in the chat. I'm based in Austin, Texas. I see some other folks from Texas here. And so happy to kind of go along and make this more of a discussion and workshop as we go through some of these slides. So first, let's talk about the state of Facebook and the social platforms. Our audiences in this day and age in 2023 are more distributed across these platforms than ever before. And it takes a lot of effort to understand what's going on which platforms, what's changed, what's new, what surfaces are available. And I think it's a little bit overwhelming at times. So I want to break down some bits and pieces of research that might be helpful to you as you start planning where to go next in your strategy. So this is data from a couple of years ago. I think most of these trends are still pretty true, came from the Pew Research Center. And what we're looking at here is how news consumers, where they are getting their news and what they look like across the platform. So this is a really broad statement, but Facebook overall, 2/3 of the news consumers are women, and audiences do tend to be white and more kind of politically balanced than other platforms. And we may see a lot of different variations of this in our local news analytics. So I want to drive home that your insights may reveal something completely different once you dig into your Facebook and other social platform audiences. But this is a kind of a broad swath of what we're looking at as far as who's on Facebook, and not only who's on Facebook, but who's using Facebook for news specifically, right? And there's a bit more research I want to share with you guys as well, which has to do with what local news consumers are trying to find when they're consuming news on the platforms. This is a newer report that came out just this year from the Reuters Institute, and it shows a lot of different things. So one, this digital report revealed that Facebook still is the #1 source as far as social media for news. That's where folks go. And on Facebook and Twitter, news media and journalists are still really central to the conversation. So what we have is news publishers posting news, individual users posting news, but they're driving the conversation is really centered around the journalistic presentation of that piece of news, that piece of content. But when we start shifting over to some of the newer platforms that lean a little younger audiences, a little more video heavy sometimes, what we see is that audiences are actually paying more attention to celebrities and personalities and influencers more than journalism organizations and more than journalists themselves. And so we're kind of in this interesting conundrum as an organization, especially in the US, where we have to kind of cater to these audiences that are used to seeing really engaging, fun, YouTube videos or TikToks. And we're competing right up against that content with something from a city council meeting or something that, that has traditionally not been very sexy and interesting. And so that is where we are today. But the good news is that Facebook still remains, a place where people are going to find news from news sources. And that's a big opportunity for the work that we do as journalists. And one more thing before we move on is that what I found really interesting about this chart in particular and why I included it was Americans are seeking out news channels and information that is more fun and presenting in a more interesting way, more so than counterparts in the UK and Germany. And so I think this is a uniquely American situation that we're in with how we're delivering news on platforms to our audiences in ways that they care about, in ways that they want to come back, and in ways that are meaningful to them. So with that, I want to talk through a little bit of the issues that we have with Facebook as an industry. These are pain points that were revealed in that survey. I know many of you, thank you for your responses here, explaining, what's wrong with Facebook, that it's lacking in clarity and transparency on how the algorithm works in a lot of ways. Publishers are also saying, I hear this in my work as well, that the reach is down, engagement is down. How do we turn this boat around? And all of these quotes I pulled out here is nothing new. It's the things I've been hearing for 3 or 4 years. We have really limited ability to reach our audience without paying. And how is the algorithm even prioritizing our content over, person and personal interactions? And so getting to the heart of what the issue is here, I think relates to maybe a misunderstanding of what we should expect from Facebook in 2023. We know that long ago, when I started in social media, Facebook was a referral engine. We were getting tons and tons of traffic across local news, to our websites. Being able to sell ads against that is a huge part of local news business. We've obviously evolved past that, but I feel like some strategies are really lagging behind in our industry. And there's still an expectation that if we post link after link after link, we'll just kind of keep growing traffic and keep growing followers. But the algorithm has changed so fundamentally that is just not a practical strategy anymore. Meta all of the platforms really, they want their users to stay on platform. They don't want them clicking out to a third-party website, a news website. And we see what happened in Canada, where news is completely, not on Facebook anymore. And so when we're building these social media strategy, we have to deal with this current reality, which is Facebook in the algorithm is prioritizing friends and family as they have been for years. And that is only getting more prominent. And secondarily, what they're suggesting is more creator type content, which with talking heads, personalities, quick videos, explainers, things like that, that are deeply engaging to users and that are keeping folks on platform and keeping people coming back to their platform. And that's their business prerogative. And so we are dealing with that as our reality. We have to look at what we can do. And that's what we're going to talk about next. So it's not all doom and gloom. I know that, I feel like a lot of news organizations feel abandoned by Facebook and Meta, and I hear that. And so how do we equip ourselves for kind of this next phase, next generation of using Facebook for what it can be good for and forgetting about expecting it to refer 90% of our traffic. So here's what's working on Facebook for local news media. We're going to talk through kind of broad strategy for posting, kind of just best practices there. I have a section on video with great examples, as well as opportunities for Facebook groups. I want to touch on briefly some of the settings that are required so that you can get the technical benefits of being on Facebook. I will also talk about paid strategy, and then overall kind of philosophies that successful news publishers are using when dealing with Facebook, so they're not spinning their wheels and so that they're getting the most out of it. I'm going to check in the chat here. All right, I don't see anything that is coming up. Here we go. Thanks for posting that, Joe, with the link out. So let's talk about posting first on Facebook. What I see sometimes with local news organizations is maybe they're posting their content just one time. Some news organizations post the same story 15 times. I think where we want to find a happy medium is on a frequency of at least daily. So Facebook will, the algorithm will benefit your practices if you post consistently. For example, if you have a newsletter that goes out every day at 7 a.m., 6 a.m., that should be a great time to also, in conjunction, post your top story on social. And I think that's something that we all know, but maybe don't practice. And then also look at your engagement trends. At what time of day and how often are you getting social referrals? And then those might be target times when you wanted to post. Now, the algorithm is going to show folks content when they're online, and it won't matter necessarily if that content was posted 2 days ago or at that moment. But if you can help train the algorithm by posting consistently, let's say every single day, including weekends at 5 a.m., you have a story up on your page, that is signaling to the algorithm that that content can be delivered on a consistent basis to the users who happen to be online at that time. So it just kind of creates a nice feedback and loop pattern for the algorithm to understand your intent and when it can expect news to be available from your page to deliver those content pieces to your audience. And so next we'll move on to the posting mix. Now, post mix is not something that I hear a lot of news publishers talk about, but it is something that affects how you are ranked in the algorithm. And what I mean is, what type of content are you posting? Are you posting links? Are you posting images? Are you posting video, status updates? And what does that look like kind of across the board? Generally speaking, if I look at the aggregate of about 2,700 local news organizations, what I see is about 75% links in that mix. And that seems to be a kind of a good aggregate average. But when links are 80, 90, 95% of the content that you post on Facebook, then that might drag down your overall reach, because Facebook, again, wants to keep users on platform. And if everything you're offering to users brings them off of platform, that's not seen as positive to the platform and to the algorithm. So keep in mind, there are some strategies that I can walk through as well, alternative to links, where you're still maybe sharing a link out to the story, but you share the image that goes along with the story. Kind of workarounds where you may not have to build a whole graphics department, but are able to accomplish a similar strategy with the work that you're already doing. Content, this seems pretty obvious. You should be elevating the topics that your audience specifically on Facebook enjoys. So if you go through your data and realize, hey, no one ever engages with stories from this this school district or from this particular beat, that might be a signal to you that it's not worth posting on Facebook, especially if you have an abundance of content. And kind of the opposite as well. If you consistently get great engagement on pet stories or nonprofit stories, not only like that can also drive your strategy to do more content like that, but post those types of content in different ways and find ways to kind of amplify those beats and those topics and niches so that you're getting the most out of the work for those pieces of stories and as well as on the platform. And then just briefly too, the links, if you're posting a link, use descriptive messaging and strong imagery. You don't want, a headshot that's kind of cropped funny that goes along with the link to your story because it's the only image you have. You won't get any reach on that. Facebook automatically sees that is not a high quality piece of content and they won't even show it to folks. So kind of get that nitty gritty technical stuff. When you're looking at the post, it should look good when you're posting a link. Images, you can post your best graphics and images to Facebook as those additional types of content in the post mix. And then statuses, I've seen a lot of news publishers get really creative with their status updates. They may do quick, brief weather updates, or they might ask a question and not a broad question such as, what do you think about President Trump running for president? No, ask local questions, ask local that bring it back home, talk to them about the toll road going over on I-45, or talk to them about what type of news they want to see in their community. Those types of status updates can perform really well and also contribute to building trust and loyalty. So I wanted to show you this quickly. This is pulled from about 2,700 newspaper and digital sites, Facebook pages. And what we see is that mix, like I mentioned, about 75% links. Let's look down at that purple where it says about 7% Facebook videos. Now, if you look at the interaction rate, you can see that Facebook videos get tremendously more interactions than literally any other type of post. And so having that part of your mix as we move forward, I'll go through the videos, but it's disproportionately high engagement for how many videos are being posted. So something to keep in mind as we look at the broad landscape of Facebook is they're clearly prioritizing video as they have for years, and it's showing in the numbers more than it has in my recent memory evaluating this type of data. And so see where the effort is put in versus where the engagement is actually happening and kind of compare those numbers, because you want to get closer to posting more of those videos, posting more photos, since they're getting that higher interaction rate across the board. So I want to show you a few pieces of content that resonated with me that seemed to be working, different examples from local news organizations. The first one is just a great example of, strong messaging, strong image, just a great story overall. Obviously, that was just asking to get great engagement, right? Here in the center, we have the beacon, and this is a method I see used frequently where maybe you're using Canva or another tool to build a graphic that has your logo on it that looks similar or the same every time. You're popping a quote in there with the credit. Quotes are something you almost always have in a journalism story. You may not have a photo, you may not have a chart or a graph, but you probably have a quote. Popping it in there, and this way you're generating content that is an image content, and not a link, but you're still providing, as you can see, that link back to the original story so folks can get more information. And I will say that the algorithm does favor photos over text images, but this is still a really great way to get more images into your feed and higher engagement on those images as well. And then the final example is what an example of what the Times Union does, and they actually overlay their headlines on top of their photography. And it looks like this is from Instagram, but this is actually their Facebook strategy, and it's working well for them. They're getting high engagement, and then in the captions they just link to the story, so you're not missing out on a referral. Every single time you post an image, you can still try and loop folks back into the full story to get more information. I'm going to take a water break here. So next I want to dive into video, and I kind of broke this out because video is such a beast, and so many news organizations that I have worked with really struggle with kickstarting their strategy, knowing what to post, knowing what's relevant, and especially when it is in regards to engagement and production, right? So with videos, especially on Facebook, Reels are probably the number one way that you can help boost your overall engagement on Facebook, as well as it will lift the rest of your content as well. And I've seen this happen when we lean into the tools and surfaces that Meta and Facebook provide. They will encourage users to look at that new format that you're experimenting with, and then they'll show those users that content because they've engaged with your original content. As you know, if you've logged on to Facebook in the last 2 years, on mobile especially, you're bombarded with videos. It's everywhere. And so Reels are getting in front of audiences more and more, including on Facebook. And what we see news organizations do are explainer videos, where they have a caption. They have it captioned out. They're explaining, how who's most likely to win in this election, or how to get your pothole fixed, or how something in city government works. And those are performing really well because they are side by side with similar content. I do encourage using captions, text, and sounds in the videos as much as possible, as well as moving graphics. If maybe you don't have any type of video department whatsoever, you can create moving movies with the graphics and quotes and stats you have, pulling in like by the numbers, pulling in quotes and things like that. Also, a way to get up to a higher video content would be user-generated content, user-submitted videos, and then any live programming. I've seen news publishers do great election coverage, publishers doing regular series where they're interviewing local leaders in their community, local business leaders, doing tours of local businesses as part of, kind of explore your town in partnership with chambers. And what's interesting about video too is that once you get started, there's a huge monetization opportunity with video, especially in local business. Local businesses don't have, often like a video studio at their disposal, but we see local news and local publishers really working hand in hand to kind of elevate one another in these scenarios. So this is a quick video that was basically just an interview explaining how one part of the story works at Farm Press, and then it got really great views and engagement for their page, and was shared widely, and they got good referrals from it as well. And then here's a few more examples of video. So the top one is from Long Beach Post. This one is, I will say, a more produced video. Typically what we see working on social can be more kind of breaking news, can be a little more gritty and messy. This one in particular is produced, and they did a great job. And the reason I included it is because it's a great topic. It's everything you need to know about the Queen Mary in under 10 minutes. So this can be applied to so many different parts of local news. Everything you need to know about filing a business permit, everything you need to know about running for school board, things in your community that your journalists already know. They already have this information. And even just little bits and pieces can be broken down into videos and shared with your audience to have them engage with your newsroom in a different way. And then underneath that too, the Long Beach Post does election night coverage. They have a great person on staff who just is a total natural in front of the camera in their studio. And these are obviously produced videos, but well worth watching for their news audiences. And then on the right here, this is more of a kind of off the cuff example of how to work video into your strategy. This is a video of a house being moved in a small community, and they wrote a story about it, and just kind of the ins and outs of how it all works. Kind of the heartbeat of a lot of local news towns is content like this. It doesn't have to be fancy. It can just explain what's going on. A couple more examples here. The one on the left is a tour. It's kind of a sneak peek of a new museum. You can do this with new restaurants. It has their watermark on it from the Oregonian. The middle one is was funny because you can click out once you get a copy of the slide, but this is a Facebook video of a sports reporter who had just moved to North Dakota, and he had never been in a windstorm before. So it's just this very personalized, humanizing snippet of daily life in North Dakota and being new to city, which is something a lot of people can relate to, which is what folks are looking for with video, is relatability, personality, confidence that there is an exchange going on between the person that's on the other side of the screen in a meaningful way. And then this final video is a snippet from a press conference / interview talking about, will Amtrak come to Ohio? And this is, captioned, really simple to kind of just splice this into a vertical video for Facebook from an interview or a presser that already happened. So finding ways to work this into your daily workflow. Something I'll touch on a little bit later, but just some good examples here. covering video. And Joe, I know we had some questions on pop up. Do we want to address those? Let's see. Yeah,
we got a couple.
suppressing
Starting
political
up
stuff.
here,
Mhm.
we got, does the algorithm penalize stuff published from third-party sites like Buffer or my example would be MailChimp? We do our newsletter every morning and it publishes to Facebook when it goes, but yeah, that was my first thought. Do you know anything about that?
So they will say that it doesn't,
Of course.
but in the reality is that it's not the first time I've heard that.
Okay.
So there's no official documentation or, you know, anything that has pointed to that. I think that there are some that are more favored than others. So if they see that a specific third-party tool is being used to spam pages,
Right.
then there may be an overreaction. Well, everything coming from Buffer is spam, right? So it's kind of almost automated in that way, from my understanding. So I wouldn't stop using third-party tools, though. I would not.
Yeah.
Stop.
What can you? I can't remember. Are you able to schedule posts on Facebook or no?
You are. Yeah,
Okay, so then that might be a
your business
workaround for
manager,
Dan.
you can do that, and you can time them
There
with
you go.
Instagram as well.
And then the next one is from Jasmine, who says, if I make a post with images and add the link to the caption, do you think that would help with the algorithm instead of doing it in the main, like as a
Yes,
text?
it should
Okay.
be in the caption, right? So that gives you a little more space to explain what's going on, and this it's something we see a lot from local news publishers.
Gotcha. And then finally here we have one from Alba, who asks, can you clarify if you encourage posting links to a story or not? I think just sort of reiterating what you were saying earlier about the practices around that.
Right. So there's nothing wrong with posting links to story. Absolutely continue posting your content. In a lot of newsrooms, I see this becoming more automated, which I would encourage if it can free up your time to do more valuable, meaningful things in creating posts. So continue posting links. However, if your links are 99% of what you post, mix it up with some other stuff. So let's say you have a great story and there's this really strong quote in there. There's a really strong statistics. 96% of students are on free and reduced lunch. Pull out 96% of students are free on free and reduced lunch, pop it into a graphic image, use Canva. It probably take you 5 or 10 minutes, and that'll be the image. And then you post that link with that image. So definitely don't stop posting links. We want to continue referring folks to our website, and those will be seen. I will say that with the publishers I work with, about 25% of everything that you post, especially if it's heavy links, will be seen by your audience. So if you have 10,000 followers, about 2,500 are regularly seeing your content in a 4-week period. You can look at your insights and confirm that in your own dashboard on Facebook, but continue posting links, and it's okay to post the link more than one time especially if big stories, and to get your frequency so that more of your readers see it, because they may not see it the first time.
I think that's all we have in this category.
Right.
Dan does have a question about how to turn off subscriptions on his page, but in the interest of time, if there's an easy answer or a tutorial link you have, that's fine, but we can address that at the end if we have time.
Sure, that sounds good. We can probably loop back to that. I do want to pop into a big opportunity that I see with local news publishers. We've been talking a lot about posting links. They're not getting anywhere. They're maybe not. They don't even know if they're being seen in the feed. They may be seen 1 out of every 4 times we post it. How are we going to get our content in front of people? Groups is a good way to go about getting your content in front of more people. So the 2 examples I have here are just that, examples. One would be on the left is a reporter that's going into a group that already exists, a neighborhood group, and saying, hi, I'm a reporter, I'm doing this, reach out to me or DM me, I'm looking for information. Another way that a reporter might do this is to go into a group and say, hi, I wrote about this. Let me know what you think. What did I miss in this story? What perspective did I not get? Trying to purposely and intentionally get more information about the topic they're covering and get community feedback. What won't work is a reporter going into a group that exists and saying, hey, I posted this, hope you like it. Like, that's really self-serving. This needs to be a genuine interaction. So in a lot of communities, these groups already exist. Facebook group has, oh man, I can't even tell you how many in one given community of 40, 50, 60,000 people, how many Facebook groups can exist for all different types of niches. So if you're in an area that is more highly populated, they probably have existing groups that you can get into and start having genuine interactions with with the community and the people that are following like local issues on a one-on-one basis and a one-to-group basis, rather than kind of using the feed method of broadcasting your news. You're really getting on the ground in a digital sense to work with what's already there. On the right is an example from the Palm Beach Post, in which they started this group during COVID. And during COVID, they were just passing information. Obviously, that was a crazy time for all of us. But what it's evolved into was what was really impressive to me, because I saw a lot of local Facebook groups form during COVID and then dissolved. But this one was a differentiated because it had moderators that were willing to continue putting in the work to just get people important information. And now it's a storm tracking group, and they cover the hurricanes, and they're exchanging information. And so the group is owned by the publisher, but it's really run by the community. And that's like a space that in a lot of ways does not exist digitally anywhere else. And that's why I see such a big opportunity. And so if you can, and you have the manpower to moderate and do all that for your own group, that more power to you. I'm happy to provide more resources and information on how to like do that effectively. I recognize that a lot of newsrooms don't have the capacity to run their own Facebook group, because it does take a level of moderation to stay active and to stay interesting and for people to come back to it, and therefore for the algorithm to show those posts in feed. But I think that either kind of strategy can work, and exploring the groups that are in your neighborhood or kind of just or in your community is just really the first step into getting in on the conversation of what's happening. It leads to story ideas, it leads to, distribution of content, it leads to loyalty building. There's just a lot of pluses to getting into groups. So I see a question about how do you get into existing groups that are limited strictly to community residents with a certain demographic profile? That can definitely be tricky. What I found in a lot of communities is for every exclusive group, there's like 3 anti-exclusive groups. So it's like there may be alternatives that formed out there out of necessity because there couldn't be exclusivity. I do think too it's worth those that are closed to go to the moderators and explain what you're trying to do. Say, I don't live in this town, or I do live in this town, and this is why I'm interested in growing this group. I promise not to self-promote. This is what kind of like a code that I'll stick by, and seeing if you can get in, especially if that's a highly valuable group to you. And another benefit of being in groups is that you can do some of the chatting in groups, actual group chats, and get a lot of information and feedback that way as well. So there's no harm in trying as a journalist. If you're transparent, I feel it's totally above board ethical to say, I'm trying to join this group because I want to get access to the people in this group because I want to tell their story. Then I think that's a great appeal. The admins ultimately will be in charge of whether you are admitted into that group or not. Yeah, I see, Nikki, you mentioning that you were in a resident group for a while and you were told you just can't promote your business even though you're just posting links to news. Yeah, it's really going to depend on the moderator in that group, which is a benefit of maybe being a moderator in a group. Another angle too is, once you can establish groups that make sense for your news organization, there may be quasi ambassadors in that group who are already posting your news or care about the news that's being generated enough to kind of help you in that way. And you can start dialogue with those folks if you're eventually admitted into the group, right? Right. Instead of just promoting our content, is it better to ask questions surrounding your content? Right. Get public opinion and spread the news. Yeah. I mean, it's certainly breaking news, schools closed or whatever it might be. And you're trying to post that to get the info out for sure. But I think that I mentioned a bit earlier that having an angle of, hey, I wrote this, hope you like it, is not the way to go in groups. They're a bit fickle and everyone has its own personality. So it's okay to join and just sit back for a bit before you post anything. And oftentimes a lot of this news dissemination actually happens in the comments of posts. So example for my personal life, our new school has a Facebook group. A lot of information is being posted, questions being asked, and it's not a poster that's going and saying, come read this news article. It's someone trying to be helpful and provide information. And so when you're existing in those groups, you see those opportunities to chime in and say, actually, my news organization wrote a report about this. We covered this 2 months ago, and jump in and just kind of live in that ecosystem a bit. That is where the local news engagement is really happening on Facebook. That's the way I see it. And I see a lot of opportunity there for news orgs. I think I got to all the questions, but if not, we can tackle them at the end. Let me just breeze through here and talk a bit about settings. So these are the technical things that need to be done on your page to ensure that that your page is favored by Facebook, essentially. First is business verification. And these are all links, and you will have access to these links so you can click out and read more. Business verification has to do with your actual business, your LLC, being recognized by Facebook as legitimate and the owner of the page that you're operating. If that's messy and messed up, you might not be able to capitalize on all of the benefits of you being on Facebook. I mean, if you want to run ads, you have to be able to, you need their business verified. But it also could make Facebook kind of view your page less favorably than if you are completely above board and they can see that through business verification. Next is the news page index. Now this is, I would call old school, because most publishers have stopped going through the process of news page index verification. I would say that being indexed in the news page index is valuable explicitly if you are running ads related to political topics. So if you're trying to boost posts that have mention of, maybe you're trying to boost a post about a mayoral debate, but Facebook keeps blocking you, it's likely because your page is not in the news page index. So that's something that needs to be checked specifically if you're trying to run those ads. And then ad restrictions is something I see a lot of publishers deal with, that they have someone on their team is boosting posts, but they're getting flagged because of the numerous triggers that Facebook has regarding ads. It could be related to housing. It could be, you have no idea why someone would flag it. So if you have multiple ad restrictions on your account, even if they're old, they can affect your reach overall. Facebook will just simply not show your content to as many people because in their view, you have ad restrictions, you've been flagged as potentially posting what you're not supposed to be posting on Facebook, so they're not going to show your content to people. So you definitely got to get all that cleaned up in order to just have a clean slate with Facebook. These last two are a little bit different. So page badges is something that you can enable on your page to help elevate the topic contributors, the regular posters, regular sharers, people who react to your page more frequently. They would get a badge on their profile whenever they interact with your page, and they kind of get a little notification and they get recognition that, hey, you're a badge owner on this page. You can revoke these, you can turn it off whenever you want. But in my opinion, for news organizations, this can help, one, identify your top followers on Facebook. They kind of self-identify by accepting the badge. And it also signals to other users, who this person might be, and that their comments will rise to the top because they contribute in a meaningful way to the conversations happening on Facebook. I also recommend this because it's another Facebook tool and they want you to lean into it. So I would recommend turning those on. And then that last one here is feed favorites. And this is an action that your users have to take in order to see your content more frequently in their feed. This is what the page looks like on mobile. You click that top one and you can select the people and pages to see more often. I will say that I have probably a dozen news organizations in my favorites, and I still do not see them with a high frequency. However, it will kind of help raise it to the top. I don't know if any of you remember the videos that news organizations used to make when they were like, hey, follow us on Facebook. And then it's a screen grab of like showing someone how to actually follow. It feels a bit like that, but that is another step that if you're in a place to educate your audience on how to see more of your content, it could be a quick post or a quick video that shows them how to do that. So those are all kind of the technical groundwork that should be laid to have a great foundation for building on social media and on Facebook. And then I want to get to paid reach because this was a topic that came up in our survey as well. So the big overarching theme here is get the most out of the money that you're spending on Facebook by defining why you are spending money in the first place and why. Like, what is your goal here? So what I see publishers often do is say, I don't know, I have about $100 to spend on Facebook a month, just boost whatever's going viral. Okay, so with that, you would get reach, you'll get some traffic, you'll get some user impressions, and you might get some followers from that. You're gonna get some of that. But what I see publishers who are doing it a little bit more smartly and doing it with a little bit more intent, what they're doing is they're actually using, instead of just a boosted post, they're building ads or automating ad building in the manager and using them for lead generation for email addresses instead of just boosting a post to get your content out there. So essentially, there's a way that you can use your content that you're already posting on Facebook to build an ad. And that ad, as you can see with that little button, that sign up button on the first example from NOLA, that ad pops up an interstitial when they click on the content that says to continue to the website, put in your email address. They don't even leave Facebook until they provide your email. It's auto-filled with the one they use for Facebook. And then that's when they actually get to your site. And why I say this is because why this is more valuable than just boosting your post is, one, you get the first party data, you're building your newsletter list. Hopefully you have a newsletter strategy. If not, this is a way to jumpstart one. They're already interested in your content. The payment that you're paying gets you to the reach. It gets you those impressions. It might get you those followers as well, and it gets you the email address of that person, so you can start building that relationship and really drive them down the funnel. So the way that I view Facebook is we are not distributing content in like the spray and pray way anymore. We're really building a relationship with our audience and trying to get them into a relationship with us and trying to get them to interact with us in more meaningful ways, like newsletters and, maybe podcasts or whatever else you might be offering. Let's see. I am going to chime on the rest of these topics as soon as I get through the rest of these slides. All right. So a couple of practices that we see local news publishers have the most success with. Planning for social. This is the biggest blind spot. I'm putting all this content on social. Why isn't it working? We're not actually planning for social. You're not building for the platform. So these are some questions that you can ask, that your newsroom can ask, that you can ask yourselves when you're posting on social. What's going to stop the scroll? How do we invite the audience to engage with the story? And really, for everything that's going to go up on social, we should be kind of ruminating on these questions before it goes up. And it may be, okay, we're posting a link, but there may be something deeper there if we start asking these questions. So another practice that is essentially important to every local news organization is building trust. This is information from Trusting News, great organization. They have tons of resources on their site. One way to do it on social is through call outs, which we kind of touched on before. What do you want us to cover? What's missing from this story? What questions do you have about just how journalism works? We have to build trust from a fundamental level with our audiences, in part because they're so used to seeing just content that's not journalism all the time. And then introducing your staff, getting to know the people on your team in fun and creative ways. This is what they do in a day, explaining their work. Those are all great strategies that local newsrooms use to build trust on social media. This comes from my former colleague, Frank Mungem, over at LMA. He was previously at the Cronkite News Lab. And this has always stuck out to me as something I try to do in my life, is making a stop list. So what can you stop doing to free up more time to do more of what we just talked about? How can we get a video strategy in place when we are spending all our time writing cheeky messages on Facebook, right? So sometimes we have to balance, what can we do? What can we stop doing? What can we do more efficiently? We're practicing this on a every 6 month, every year basis, reviewing our practices and getting better and stopping what doesn't make sense. Everything from big overall strategy to these posts don't perform, we're not going to do them anymore. And then, of course, we know this, you need to diversify your social platforms. Facebook is not the basket that I would put all of my eggs in if I was a local news publisher. It certainly has its benefits, but it does not meet all of our needs, and it doesn't answer all of our questions. And so what I would go through is an exercise of, where is your audience actually engaging? Where is the traffic coming from? How long are they staying on site from different platforms? What in your current social production can be scaled to other platforms with minimal lift? So vertical video is a great example. You make a vertical video, it can be on Facebook, it can go to your Instagram, it can be on TikTok, it can be other places. So you're doing it once, but scaling it can really be essential into to making a change and to going in growth direction. And something I love to see is when there's in-house talent that really has a passion for a certain platform and they'll just go with it. And it's like, we've never done Instagram before, but we have a reporter on staff who loves to do Instagram. Let them run with it. Let them experiment. You're not losing out by letting them do that, but you will lose out if you don't allow experimentation and testing and diverging on different platforms to find your audience. Really quick, this is one slide measuring success. There is no one right number that everyone should be at. We're all at different starting points. And this is what I would like to drive home as we wrap up right now, this portion. Engagement is high quality. What we're looking for is high quality engagement. If the engagement is low quality, if it's just a bunch of bickering, that's not going to be favored by Facebook. If it's all just tags of other people's names, that's not exactly high quality either. So we're looking for real conversations, real questions, real back and forth dialogue discussion. Seems basic, but that's what we need to find on Facebook. When we get to the numbers, what we want to see is with new strategies that your Facebook referral session length is increasing. So you may not be driving more Facebook traffic, but the Facebook traffic that's coming in is staying longer. They're loyal and they're coming back. So those users are coming back from Facebook and they are continuing to do that. That's a measure of success. And then another measure would be Facebook is directing users to other owned products. So not just referrals, but maybe you're using them for your newsletter signups, or you're using them to defer to another product or mobile app or something. Follower growth, obviously, we want to see that as a measure of success. And then this is pretty broad, but the way that I view the metrics that are available on Facebook right now as a hierarchy, it would be shares. We love to see people sharing whatever you can do to get people to share your content, one person to another. Keep doing it. Keep doing it over and over and over again, because that is what's going to actually amplify as Facebook shows the majority of the content to users from their friends and family. We got to get those friends and family to start sharing what the content that we're making through these kind of innovative and thoughtful methods. And then after that would be comments. Sometimes comments are shares if they're tagging their friend in a post you made. Then saves are actually pretty valuable. And then likes and reactions are they're still good. We absolutely still want likes and reactions. I would just rank them kind of the lowest as a loyalty and retention measure, because they're so effortless versus all the other metrics. And with that, I will hopefully peruse the chat here and see if I can answer some questions and just kind of open it up for anyone who wants to turn on their camera and chime in and have a little chat here.
I know we had a couple in the chat that we wanted to get to, so why don't we start with that? And then if anybody wants to ask a question out loud, you certainly can raise your hand and do so at any point. Let's see here. We talked about the groups. We got the groups. Instead of just promoting your content, is it better to ask questions surrounding your content, which you already covered? Let's see. Any tips if you do not know who the business admin is on your page? You should be able to see that, right, in the settings, I believe.
Right. If you go to settings, you should be able to see who owns the page. And sometimes it's a person, and sometimes it's a business manager, and sometimes it's like a combination, like a dummy account. So if you email me, I can help you I can walk you through it. We can screen share. I'm happy to help.
And then there's another, if I don't have a website launched yet and they're still pre-launched, Noelle wants to know, is it possible to still get verified, and does it cost anything?
The business verification does not. That is different than blue check verification. The business verification will cost you your time, and you have to upload like I think you're an incorporation or some other official documentation, potentially an ID. It does not cost anything. You do need a functioning website and email address, LLC, even if it's like a placeholder email, like website.
Yeah. Let's see then. Okay, so Noelle also here says, I'm pre-launched. I've done market research. My solo online presence is a Facebook page. Haven't launched a website or started covering news yet. I'm curious to try to do this and get some engagement, since I'm not a full-fledged news outlet yet. I do find the idea of asking people what they would like to know or understand about journalism interesting, but I don't know if it would work. It sounds like something you want to just play around with and experiment. Now's the time, right? I mean, if you're not launched yet, this is where you put out the feelers. You do those community information needs assessments and stuff. And I can certainly, and the center can point you towards resources on how to conduct those kind of preliminary needs assessments if you're interested, Noelle.
I will say that too, one of the benefits going back to groups is that you have a lot more tools at your disposal to engage with folks. And so I like the page is a great idea as maybe like a corporate, but if I were starting a news organization today, I might consider at least briefly whether I start as a Facebook group, so that you have polls on platform available to you. If you have, and you have, you can bold your text, you can add more images, you can have group video. I mean, like there's a ton of features that you can leverage in groups. And so I might explore that too.
Great idea. Dan has a question. Dan, you want to unmute and ask your question, or you're unmuted? Go ahead. And ask
I think I'm unmuted. Hi, thanks for putting this together. I think I made a joke in the chat that if this were just a rant session about Facebook, you wouldn't even had to do a presentation because we could have all had our rants with us. But I have a question about subscriptions because for a hot minute, Facebook was, and I guess maybe they're still doing it, you know, trying to get readers to buy paid subscriptions to the page, and they'd have like exclusive videos and all that. Well, I turned it on just to test it, and I found I could not turn it off, and there was no button to turn the damn thing off. And so the reason I wanted to turn it off is because it didn't integrate with my other subscriptions. You know, I have a donor box, and from that I get Stripe and PayPal and all that. So now when you go to subscribe on the Decatur's page, it has a big message in all caps that says, do not subscribe to this. I cannot turn it off. I don't know how. And it's kind of embarrassing, but I don't know what to do except just kind of roll with it.
Yeah, I probably need to look more deeply into that particular issue a little more deeply, because I could probably launch a ticket if we really can't figure it out. I don't know that many personally. I've not worked with that many subscribers, publishers who use that and then like needed to take it off. And so shoot me an email if you don't mind, because I can walk you through it.
Do you work for Facebook? What's the
No, I don't know.
Okay.
So previously, when I was at the local media association, we formed something called the Local News Resource Center, which was a partnership with Meta and Meta, Facebook, and the local media association. So I was kind of a liaison for that time, and I worked with all the publisher partners who are no longer there anymore. And so I didn't see publishers frequently using subscribe and then take it off, because my understanding it was on its way to being sunset. And so let's see if it's just a bug.
Yeah, that would
just be that.
Great.
God, imagine if we got somebody from Facebook actually on this call. That would be.
Well, if you ever get to talk to the Pope of Facebook or whoever, you know, they let you talk to over there, one thing, and I think Elon Musk is an atrocious human being, but one thing I did appreciate about making Twitter Blue a monthly thing is they added some dedicated support to it. And I have been I was like, if Facebook would just charge me a flat monthly rate to get some support with my page, I would get out my credit card right now and pay for it, you know, like, because it is so important to what I do.
Yep.
But I don't know who you even talk to at Facebook about that. I mean, I would pay for that, you know, reasonable amount for the whatever you get. But
yeah.
Anyway.
I hear that. I definitely echo that.
Yeah.
We got a question from Kimmy, who says wants to just come back to that aspect of the news page index being almost impossible to get verified by. Have you heard any solutions or alternatives on ways to approach that process, and if anybody's been successful with it?
So the news page index, to clarify too, is different from blue check verification as well. And so news page index is internally in the business manager. And I personally haven't had issues. If everything is checked, as far as you have to have your business verified, there are some boxes that need to be checked technically. But I haven't had issues in my experience recently with publishers not getting into the index. However, publishers are not getting blue check verified without paying anymore. From my experience, I've tried it on Instagram, I tried Facebook, I go through the support portal, I have my ways, and it doesn't work. And so as far as news page index, there are some boxes that need to be checked as far as verifying your page, verifying your identity and not have any current ad restrictions on your page. So if that's something that I can help you work through one-on-one, I'm happy to do that as well. And for just to clarify too, these small little issues, I'm happy to just help, of course, pro bono with anyone who's on this call today and has sat through this presentation and talked to me, but I'm happy to help.
Okay. We got one from Alba. When is the best time to transition from only posting organic to including paid posts?
That's a great question. When you have a strategy for your paid posts, do you have a newsletter that you're going to feed that into? Do you have an objective? Do you know how to run Facebook ads? Do you have a tool that's going to do it for you? I think you got to answer kind of all those questions first. What makes me so sad is when publishers just go out and start boosting posts willy-nilly. I think it's such a waste of money, honestly. And so the best time to do it is if you have a newsletter you're trying to grow and you have some good content that shows up in your newsletter, start using your content to grow your newsletter audience. And that you don't have to do it through the Facebook, the way that I showed you with those, with the lead generation ads. You can do it maybe on site. Once they get to your site, they immediately see the pop-up to continue reading. There's a lot of different technical ways to do it, but I would say don't start spending money unless you're getting a lot more out of it than just eyeballs, because eyeballs are kind of a dime a dozen these days. So it's a good question.
We got Brett from Free Press. Brett, go ahead.
Yeah. Mute myself. All right. There we go. So Emilie, this is a great seminar. Thank you very much. We've had a Facebook group for Oklahoma City Free Press, and you know it just kind of ended up being kind of the same thing too much. You know, I had a really good opinion writer that that a lot of people got angry with, which that's the point, isn't it? You know, and so but that was about as far as it got, and I just feel like I have kind of squandered that group really in a lot of ways. And I really like your ideas here. Could you just kind of extend some of your comments there about best practices? I'm thinking about, you know, finding out how to develop new products for free press, you know, what people would feel would be useful. And so could you just kind of talk a little bit about how I could better engage a group that's already there? I mean, they haven't left. I guess they've kind of forgotten about us since we're not that active right now. But just kind of talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That's a great question. I think, especially because I put so much emphasis on groups and how groups are the next wave, hopefully. And so I think a few more ways that you might approach groups is to get down and actually look at who your members are, who were the other maybe admins, top contributors, top collaborators, message them on Facebook. Hi, I'm so-and-so. This is what we're looking to do.
Mm-hmm.
Leverage the internal tools too. So there's polls on there. And when you're using those internal tools, your Facebook's a lot more likely to show that content to a user than just a regular text post or a link post anyway, because it's an invitation for engagement. It's a poll. It's a question. So use those and start asking, like kind of just get started and ask those questions. I do think there's a ton of power in the community moderators that already exist. And I know this is your owned group, but you know, when you get a fan of news, of local issues, and they came in maybe from one story you did on a environmental issue or something, right? Like those are your steadfast, really, they hold on to your brand and they hold on to your news, and they're so valuable. They're like a super user. And so it's so basic as journalism, but develop a relationship with them, right? And there may be some incentives that you can offer too. Maybe if it's crickets and you're not making connections, I would start with, gift cards for doing surveys, you know, gift cards for focus groups. Get these folks in a group setting and hear from them, listen to them, right? That's the first real step in any type of decent journalism, is listening. And groups are a good place to do that. So I feel like you might have to poke around and see what works there, and almost do a relaunch and kind of reset the tone for what they can expect from the group and how you want them to contribute. Because those groups are really places where people come because they want to interact and they want to see what's going on, you know.
Right, or at least once upon a time they did.
Yes, right. Let them rekindle that love.
I'm also a little bit afraid to get started again because someone will go, "What, y'all? This is that group. I don't want to be a part of that group anymore." So, anyway, Emily, thank you very much. Very valuable seminar today.
You bet. Thank you.
We are going to have to end it there. Again, we are at the top of the hour. You will all be receiving a recap email. I'm going to send out the recording, the audio, the transcript, an AI generated summary of everything we talked about, the slides, the whole shebang. I just want to say again, thank you, Emily, so much. This is great. As one of the guests said, we could probably do this for hours. Even if we didn't have any programming, we just complained about Facebook. If any of you would like to follow up, Emily's contact information will be included in that email, and you can reach out to her with any questions or follow-ups that you have. Thank you again, everybody, for showing up and joining. And look out for our next events coming up. Check our Eventbrite profile and our Twitter. So thank you all so much, and we'll see you later. Have a great rest of the week.